Hey everyone, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week. And full disclosure, I am actually recording this on Friday. If you watch my videos, you will have noticed from Friday to today, I have been wearing the same shirt. That's because I did these in a row. And so by virtue of that, if I missed any major data breaches from Friday afternoon, Saturday, or Sunday, you know I'll pick them up on next week's breaches of the week. I just had a lot of work stuff I needed to get done, so I was not able to do these, so I'm just doing them in one shot. And with that, I'd like to thank Jason Dance and Chris Fallon and David Walker for all sending me information this past week. It's always appreciated. And if you have a tip for me, please feel free to send it my way. And with that, let's start with Cisco. And I am not talking about the late 90s to early 2000 wrapper. I am talking about the Cisco switch/router maker and everything else that they do. A former Cisco employee pled guilty to accessing the company's cloud infrastructure in 2018, 5 months after resigning to deploy code that led to the shutdown of more than 16,000 WebEx team accounts and the deletion of 456 virtual machines in Cisco's infrastructure. Now, according to the plea agreement that was filed on July 30th of this year, 30-year-old Sudish Kasaba Ramesh accessed Cisco's cloud infrastructure hosted on Amazon Web Services without permission on September 24th, 2018, and he resigned from the company in April of 2018, so obviously months after. A press release issued by the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of California says, and I quote, "During his unauthorized access, Ramesh admitted that he deployed code from his Google Cloud Project account that resulted in the deletion of 456 virtual machines for Cisco WebEx Teams applications, which provided video meetings, video messaging, file sharing, and other collaboration tools. As a direct result of this, more than 16,000 WebEx teams were also shut down for approximately 2 weeks, which forced Cisco to spend more than $2.4 million in customer refunds as well as employee time to actually restore the damage that he caused. This is a huge problem. One, we always have to be aware of retaliation, let's say by former employees for whatever the reason is. Obviously, this guy's got a bit of a screw loose. Maybe he was very disgruntled and he obviously had programming chops, so he took it out on his former employer. But I also think this really underscores the lack of accountability and internal controls that Cisco has, especially when they are making things like firewalls and other security products. You kind of have to practice what you preach there a little bit. I am glad he was caught, though. I'm glad it was shut down. But $2.4 million of damage and 2 weeks outages is a huge, huge thing. Moving on, let's talk about Amphastar Pharmaceuticals. They just got hit with a ransomware attack by the Doppelpaymer group, who uploaded a number of files as proof of access and exfiltration. This was because a listing that Amphastar eventually discovered that employee data had been stolen in a May attack, which is why this came to light. Now, on August 27th, Amphastar sent notification letters to current and former employees whose information was impacted by this attack. The personal information included things like your first name, last name, and social security number, but Amphastar is saying no other personal information was involved. So heads up if you are part of Amphastar Pharmaceuticals in any way, shape, or form. Moving on, let's talk about Somerset Berkeley Regional High School. They also got hit with a ransomware attack. On July 17th, some school computer systems were encrypted, and their superintendent, Jeffrey Schoonover, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, said the school's computer systems were immediately taken offline to prevent the spread. Local law enforcement is, involved. The investigation is ongoing. But heads up, Somerset Berkeley Regional High School and anybody related to them. Moving on, let's head down under to the Australian Computer Emergency Response Team, or AusCERT. Now, AusCERT denied claims a couple of days ago that attackers had breached the Department of Education, Skills and Employment, also known as the DOE, and downloaded the personal details of more than 1 million students, teachers, and staff in Australia. Rumors of the supposed hack first surfaced a few days before that, after the attacker shared an archive on a hacker forum which was initially advertised as data obtained from the Australian DOE. Now, according to a screenshot of this now deleted forum post, the attacker claimed the data contained more than 1 million records, as I mentioned, of Australian students, teachers, and DOE staff, and that was obtained apparently back in 2019. AusCERT says the hack never took place, and so we'll see. So at the moment, heads up if you are a member of the Department of Education, Skills and Employment in Australia, or a student or a teacher. This is an ongoing situation. I'll obviously let you know. Moving on, I want to give you guys an update on Claire's. This is the jewelry stores that you'll find in a ton of malls around America. I'm assuming they're international as well, because Claire's Stores Inc. allegedly weak security practices led to a breach that exposed customer data, including payment card and account information, according to a new class action that is basically going through the Northern District of Illinois, their court system. The jewelry retailer also failed to notify customers for more than a month, which led to an ongoing identity theft risk. And this is according to plaintiff Julia Rossi's claims. And she's basically filing this in the state of Illinois, where the headquarters of Claire's is. So heads up, if you've ever shopped at Claire's, or your kids have, or your spouse, or whoever, you may be entitled to some cash. Moving on, let's talk about Haywood County Schools in North Carolina. They also got hit, like the Berkeley School, with ransomware. Now, work is underway to determine the extent of this breach and to protect the personal information of those impacted. And the attack basically shut down the remote learning at Haywood County Schools for an entire week. Repairs were made and online instruction resumed a week later, but their superintendent, Bill Nolte, says he suspects there may be more to this cyber attack involving data, and so we'll see where this goes. But heads up to you, Haywood County Schools, you may not be out of the woods in North Carolina, and you guys have some beautiful woods down there. Moving on, I'm going to give you an update on Experian of South Africa. If you recall, last week I mentioned that they had a data breach, but according to a new report by iAfrican, an investigation, basically after an investigation and a tip-off, the alleged Experian database is apparently on the web and publicly viewable on websites and forums. Now, in a tweet, data breach and record exposure search engine Have I Been Pwned said, and I quote, Experian South Africa has tens of millions of personal records breached last month. Only 1.3 million contained email addresses, while others included government-issued IDs, names, addresses, and employment info. 66% were already in Have I Been Pwned, meaning people are basically not changing their information. So heads up to you in South Africa. Odds are you're part of this Experian breach, because Experian has records on everybody. That's what they do. Moving on, I'll give you a quick update on Blackbot. As you know, I mentioned last week, there's a class action going on and more schools have disclosed. This week, the big one is Catholic Health in New York State. They are disclosing that they are part of that Blackbot breach. And so if you have anything to do with Catholic Health in New York State, heads up to you. And finally, the last one we're going to be talking about, again, short week, because I'm missing a few days here, which I will catch up on next week. So expect a long video / podcast next Sunday about this. I want to close with Morgan Stanley, the financial giant, and give you an update with this, because they just got hit of a $5 million data breach suit. Now, the class action claiming the financial organization failed to properly safeguard personally identifiable information, which makes sense, they got breached, when the company discarded old computer equipment. That's right, they chucked things but didn't properly destroy the hard drives, therefore the data was accessible. Now, the suit is being brought by a Morgan Stanley customer. His name is Timothy Smith, in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, on behalf of about 100 other customers affected by this data breach. The case is tied to incidents in 2016 and 19, when the firm decommissioned several pieces of computer equipment without actually destroying the data, as I just mentioned. And that really underscores, especially when you are dealing with a large giant like Morgan Stanley, they have a lot of compliances that they also have to deal with, which means there's going to be financial penalties for that, for things like Sarbanes-Oxley, GLBA, FFIEC, SEC, and some others. You know, I'm sure the Federal Trade Commission will probably get involved as well in some way, shape, or form. And this really underscores the point that if they had spent $2 million on upping and enhancing their security, maybe this wouldn't have happened, and they would have saved $3 million in the process at least. This is why we have compliance. This is why we need to be stringent. And this is why we can't pay lip service, even to minor things like throwing out equipment. We need certificates of destruction, or we need to do it ourselves. That is a huge thing. And so those were your breaches of the week. Were you affected? Let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.